Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a park bench in Lightburn. Okay, so I'm going to use nothing but the tools in Lightburn to create this image. And this file is a memorial bench that I created. And let's see, that one is the first attempt. This is the one that's online. This one is done so that it's got a pair of angel wings and a halo in the middle, name and birth and death dates in each of the hearts. Then there's a cardinal. You can see inside here and on the outside of the leg, got cardinals and hearts that go along with the hearts up top. I forgot to mention that in order to get the cardinal on the inside and outside of the legs, the way I do that is when I first position my material on my Roly Lasermatic, because the precision is there with the Roly, I can put that in the bottom left corner of my honeycomb and select just the two cardinals and engrave the two cardinals only. Then with the image locked into the frame of the 300 by 300, all of that's grouped, I mirror that image in Lightburn, then physically pick up the piece of material off the honeycomb, flip it, then send the entire job to the Roly, and it will engrave the mirrored images in the exact same spot they need to be for the cardinals, and everything lines up perfectly with the Roly. So that I forgot to mention, so I had to cut in here and explain that tip to you now. Back to the video. And then slide each individual tab in there, and then with the activator, good to go. It ain't going anywhere. But this is a simple design to do. It's not difficult when you know how to use the tools that are in Lightburn. And that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm going to design a bench from scratch. Now, I won't do this one because I don't know that I could replicate this bench now if I tried to. Because this was just designed off the cuff, and I could replicate it pretty close, but I'm not going to try and design this exact same one. If you like this one, it is available on hobowithwood.com, hobowithwood.com, and it will have the cardinal on the legs. It'll have the hearts, the angel wings, and the halo. Of course, it won't have the name and date information in there. But without further ado, let's jump over to Lightburn and take a look at this file, and then I'm going to show you how to create a file similar to it, because I'm going to create a whole group of benches. This one will be the memorial bench, and it's available now, as I said, on hobowithwood.com. But I'm also going to do a collection of benches that will be kind of each will be unique and maybe a little fun. I'll do a collection of the military branches, and then I'm playing with one now, and we'll play with it some. I've got an idea. Did any of you play Nintendo? Did you play Duck Hunt? I did. I wore that thing out. And I'm going to make a Duck Hunt bench in this video. I don't know that I'll get the final pieces, the artwork exactly like I want it, but we're going to start designing a duck hunt park bench in this video. So let's jump over here to Lightburn. This is the file that is available now. This is the memorial bench. This is how you would get it when you download it. And it's only 9 pieces. This is one solid cutout, and then your legs, and then 6 individual slats. Easy to put together. And I've got them on 3 different layers. I've got a cut layer, the black engraved layer, and then the blue engraved layer. The blue is in an offset fill. Now I did this in an offset fill with the hearts and the circle and the halo simply to save time. By doing it this way, I'm saving over 3.5 minutes in cutting this out, because what it does, when it does what it does, if we select that and we go in and look at the preview, when it goes, it'll do the angel wings just like you would normally expect an engraving, top to bottom. But when it starts doing the circular pieces, the halos and the hearts, oh, not there, play. There we go. Offset fill, if you're not familiar with it, offset fill will do just that. It's going to fill it in a circular motion instead of scanning left to right, left to right, left to right. And some folks will get a result they're not happy with using offset fill, and that's because they're not using it correctly. And I'm going to just touch real quick with you about offset fill and how to use it so you can get a good looking result and save some time when you've got to do engravings like this, where it's going to go around the perimeter of a piece or around a frame of a design. Offset fill can save you a ton of time. And the way that works, to prevent having an unusual outcome or an unusual or undesired result with offset fill, the trick is that you want those passes that laser is making as it's going around and around and around. You want those passes to be tight together so you don't have any spacing or any ridges left. And that's what happens. People get these ridges because they have their line interval set too low. Your average diode laser, they advertise usually around a 0.08 average spot size. And if you do an offset fill with a 0.1, well, that is larger. Your line interval is larger than your spot size, and it leaves ridges in there. Now, if that's the look you're going after, it actually can be a pretty cool effect. But if you want a solid fill without any residuals or any ridges or anything like that, then you want to make your line interval smaller than your spot size. So here I've got my spot size set to 0.06. So a 0.06 spot size or line interval smaller than my spot size is going to give me a solid fill and not leave any unwanted or undesired results, and it's going to save me over 3 minutes in engrave time. And what's 3 minutes? Well, if you were doing 10 of these, it's a half hour. So when you're doing production work, you look for any way you can to try and save as much time as possible. But we're going to design a bench similar to this using just the tools in Lightburn, and we're going to do that now. So I'm going to move this up here out the way. Now, this is not going to be a short video. Most of mine aren't. But if you want to learn to design something like this and learn some tricks, some tips, and some shortcuts, then you're not going to want to jump around and skip around in this video, because my brain does that enough. So I may be talking to you about this and doing that, and then squirrel, I'm off on a tangent, and you might miss something that I'm going back and catching up, or you just never know. So you don't want to jump around. You want to stick with me in this, and we're going to try and get through it as quick as possible. But if you want to learn to do this, truly learn to do it yourself, not have to go to the website and buy the design, then you're going to want to watch this in its entirety. I will not do what most other creators do in these videos and omit 2 or 3 things that prevent you from replicating the exact same result, because you're going to watch this in real time. I'm not going to be editing the video, so you're going to see all my goofs and all my errors. But when we're done, you'll be able to do this yourself without having to begin, wait a minute, it's just not working for me. And so many creators do that. They'll show you just enough, but they won't show you how to replicate what they're doing. Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, and we're going to do that right now. So back to Lightburn. So the first thing you want to know, there are a couple of knowns. Well, there's actually, right now, when you start out with a design, you've only got one known. You know how big your material is going to be. And 9 times out of 10, I'm working with my 300 by 300 millimeter Baltic Birch squares. So make this toolpath a 300 millimeter toolpath. Put it in the bottom corner. So I know that. I know this is how much area I have to design in. Now, I don't know the size of a park bench. I do now because I Googled it and checked it out. And just to save you time, the average park bench is 56 inches long, 36 inches tall, and 24 inches deep. So now I know what my park bench dimensions are. Now, of course, I'm not going to make a 56-inch park bench, but I'm going to draw out a profile right here. And this is going to be the height of my bench and the width of my bench. So if I'm working in millimeters, and I'm going to say that 1 millimeter equals an inch. So I'm unlocking my aspect ratio, and if it's 56 inches, it's 56 millimeters wide, and it was 36 inches tall, so 36 mil tall. So there is the ratio, or the dimensions, the profile dimensions, height and width of the park bench. Now I'm going to, the seat height was about 18 inches, or half of that. So I'm now just going to say that if it was half, then the park bench, the backrest is half. It's also 18 inches. So I can just change that to 18 inches. So there is my backboard. Okay. Now if that's my backboard, now I need to make a side profile piece. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. And what do I know? I know that the height of my backboard is 36 inches. So I'm 36 mil. And it's 24 deep. So there's that. So there, I'm going to hold that, hold shift, and align that to the left. And those are aligned together. Oops. Make sure they're still aligned together. Group them. And then I'm going to put them over here and put it in the center of that board there. Now, I don't want to make anything that small. If you were going to make, and typically what you do when you're wanting to design, you want to design it in its smallest application. How small are you going to be making this piece? So if you were going to make this for a train set, HO scale or something like that, then you're going to make it probably closer to these dimensions. And you want to design it this small. So that, because if you design it too big and you put really intricate pieces in there and then you shrink it down, well, then you lose all that detail. So design as small as you're going to make it, and then you can always blow it up. But for these uses, my intent here is to make them as big as I can make them with my 300 by 300 material. So that's how I'm going to base my the ratio, the dimensions of this piece. So now I've set up my profiles. Now I've got those in the right sizes and the right ratio, height and width. But now I'm going to take both of these, they are grouped, and I've got them aligned to the left. So, and it tells me right now it's 56 mil wide, and I can make this, can't go for full 300 because I want to leave a little buffer around it, and plus I'm going to do some stuff with the design here in a minute. So I'm going to tell this to be 285 mil wide. I've got my aspect ratio locked. So now with that locked, 285 mil wide. That blows up everything together, so that keeps my aspect ratio with the side profile and the back correct. And now I'm going to create my side piece. Ungroup that. And let's bring this over here. And there's my correct aspect ratio for my side profile. So if this is the top, this is the bottom of the feet. The seat height, remember, was half of its overall height. So to get that, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to draw a straight line. Select that and tell it to align. Let's see, you got to select the line, select the square, and a line in the center, or just bullseye, either way. There we go. So there is half there's the seat height right there. So if that's my seat height, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab my O2 layer. I'm going to grab my pencil tool, and this is going to be the top corner. And I'm going to start my drawing line there, and then I'm going to come down here. Now this is going to be the seat back, and it's going to have a recline on it. So do I want it reclined that much? No, obviously I don't. Do I want it straight up and down? No, I want to get it to where it looks like it's going to be something comfortable. Now I could Google and find out what that average inclination inclination would be. How much is it reclined? But I'm just going to go with what looks good. I'm going to say that right there looks pretty good. And I'm going to left click and right click to stop my line. That's done. That's one solid line right there. That's the seat back angle. Now I'm going to come up here, or actually I'm going to come down here. It's probably going to connect, but if it does, I'll disconnect it. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to make the angle, and actually, you know what you could do? You could just say, I'm going to select this one, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to align it to the bottom left corner there. Now there's two separate lines. Now I'm going to take that, I'm going to duplicate it again, Control D, duplicate it, and I'm going to mirror it, and I'm going to put it over here to the right side. And now I need a straight line that's going to be my bench, which is that toolpath, and I can take my scissors and cut that, cut that, cut that, and cut that. Put that on the cut path. Now I'm starting to have the profile of my bench. I no longer need that toolpath. And I want to select all of this and see how many objects are there. There are 3 objects. There should be 5. So this one here may have joined, or that one may have joined. It joined somewhere. You know what? I need those individual because I specifically need the seat to be individual. So if I go to my node editing tool, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. There should be 4 objects. And how many were there? 3 objects. Alright, so if I select here, there's telling me there's 1 object. There's 1 object, there's 1 object. So these did join. So I'll select that one, go into node editing, and I'm going to come right here to that middle node and hit the letter B for break. And now if I look, and actually, now that I think about it, I didn't necessarily need to do that, because this one's the only one I really need individual anyway, and it's still individual, so we're good. That one needs to stay on its own. Now I'm going to start giving it some character, and because I don't want straight legs, I need a straight back, but I don't want straight legs, and my seat needs to be comfortable to sit in, and that would not be comfortable to sit in. So I'm going to go to node editing. I'm going to hit the letter M for middle, and then hover over that node and hit the letter S for smooth. Then I'm going to click on that node. See, right now it's not highlighted. If I click on it, it turns red. Now that's the one I'm selecting. And I'm going to use my move function. You move my arrows, and I've got my move settings. If you go into your gears, your units and grids, here are your shape movement increments. Control arrow, arrow, and shift arrow. For me personally, since arrow is only 1 button, that's my largest movement, and I've got 5 mil. Shift arrow is my next one, is 1 mil, and control arrow, I've got 0.5 mil. So I'm going to say OK, and I've got that one selected, and I'm going to do shift arrow down 1 millimeter. 1, that's not enough. 2, 3, 4, 5. I could have just used my regular shift arrow. In fact, I'm not holding shift. I'm just using my arrow rather. There's back to a straight line, 1 arrow down to give me the 5 mil. Didn't know that's what I wanted, or I'd have done it right out of the gate. But now that gives me a good curve and contour there. But by having these handles coming straight out, the curve doesn't begin at that node or that node. So now I'm going to click on that handle, hold shift and click on that handle, Now both of those are red, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use my control arrow down, 1/2 mil, until I get right about there. That's close enough where it's close to that line, and that gives me a better contour around that. So now I like that shape. Now I want to do same thing with my leg. That one's separate, that's good. And I'm going to go to nodes. I've got them already in nodes. Hit M for middle, hover over that and hit the letter S. And now with that S, let's try that at 5 mil. Let's bring that in over arrow one time. That don't look terrible. Same thing here, middle, S. Select that node, left arrow in, and that looks pretty good. All right. So that's looking more like a comfortable bench that I would want to sit in. Now, I'm going to select that entire piece, and here you have to start thinking about the material you're going to be working with. I have created a skeleton or a line drawing of that leg on the side, but now I want to create it with some width to it, but it needs to be wide enough so that there's room to accommodate those slots, but I don't want it extremely bulky. I want it to be as narrow as it can be, but strong enough to make a dependable, sturdy piece. So I'm working with 3mm wood. So I know the thickness or the height of that slot is going to be 3mm. I'm going to do 3mm additional. We'll do 6mm total width. So that gives me a 1.5 millimeters above the slot and below whenever I get it all finished. It'll make sense in a minute, but let's take a look here. So I've selected that entire piece, and I'm going to come over here to my offset tool, and I'm going to do a total of 3 plus 3. I'm going to do a 6mm offset outward, and I want to do round, because if you do corners, you get this. You get that funky, that don't look good, and of course it's not going to sit really well. It's going to sit on that corner of that, and so just doing round gives you a nice contour at the top on your legs, joins that up really nice. That looks good. Do not delete your original pieces. Keep your original skeleton and say okay. Now you've got the beginnings of your leg profile. Now that one's still a separate line, and that's good. And I need to create and position my slots for my slats. My slots for my slats. So what do I know? I know that the slot is going to be 3 mil high. So 3mm high. And let's do 6 mil. I got to unlock my aspect ratio, 6:3. All right, so if that's 6:3, and that's going to be a slot, I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it, and I'm holding my control, and I'm going to draw that out a little bit, put that on a toolpath, and I want to tell it to be 12 inches, or 12mm. Oop, I had my anchor point in the wrong place, and see I skewed that off the center, so undo that. Put my anchor point back. Oops, I got to select it. Put the anchor point back in the center and tell that to be 12. And that draws that in correctly. So now that's a slat that's going to be 12mm wide with a 6mm slat or slot tab. That'll be a tab that slides through this slot. So I'm going to duplicate that. Control D, duplicate it, and I'm going to set this over here out the way, because I know that's my original design. I'm going to group this, and I'm going to bring it down here, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to grab right there. If you scroll up, you see you don't get your dot. You come down, and it should be right there with where that gray dot is. Get on the toolpath, and you'll see a circle right there. And that's the center of your piece, and I'm going to bring it over until it snaps to that point right there. So now that is centered up in the center of that line on this piece. But over here, it's nowhere near centered. Now, how do I get that centered up? there's a bunch of ways. There's always more than one way to do things, but I try to think of the simplest way to do things because that's how this brain works most of the time. Sometimes I can make things more complicated than they should be. But here, I'm just going to grab me a bright pink toolpath and a pencil, and I'm going to come right here to that intersection, and I'm going to draw down here to where it intersects right there. And now I can come back to my selector tool and grab that line and look at my, let's see, let's move this over here so you can see. If I grab that, there we go, there. Grab that line, you can see it's negative 9.2 degrees. Negative 9.2 degrees for that straight line. So, I don't need that line anymore. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to put my anchor point back to the center left. That's going to anchor that piece in the center right there where I put that centered up. And I want to rotate it 9.2 degrees so that it'll pivot on that point and put that right line centered up on that line. Now that was negative 9.2 degrees, but when you use your rotate tool up here, a negative value will cause it to rotate counterclockwise. I want to rotate this clockwise. So I'm going to come up here and put in 9.2 and enter, and that rotated that right down there. And now that's, even though this is technically an arc, that's about as centered up as you're going to get with an arc. Now with that lined up there, I'm going to select that group, hold my control button and select that line, and I'm going to try to copy a long path. It don't always work. Copy a long path, and this time it worked. So copy a long path, and I want to do, I've got 6 slats, so I need 6 copies. And I'm going to now take a look here, and I want to, you see how these are all the wrong angle? Tell it to rotate copies. Now that will rotate it right along that path and keep everything centered up. But I've got a problem. I don't want this piece all the way out there. I want the end of that slat to be inside here to where I've got about the same amount of distance from here to here, from here to here. So I'm going to change my space between copies. And that's real close. In fact, that looks like that might actually work. I'm going to go with that. I just reduced it a little bit, and I'm looking here at that spacing there. And if you looked at the space between that dancing, flashing line and the top of the slat and there to there, they're about the same. They're close enough. I'm going to say okay. So now I've just positioned my slots for the tabs on my bench pieces. Now I need to create some tabs over here for my backboard. These I'm going to make bigger. Let's say Control D, duplicate that, rotate it, and bring it over here. And I don't need that toolpath. And let's make this slot, we'll make it, it's going to be 3 wide, but let's make it 9. Now I need to get that over here, and by taking and dragging it from that center point and then putting it right on the line, it'll snap right there to my line there. That is centered up on that line, but obviously it's not at the right angle. Well, I want to, and then I want to make sure that it's positioned in a place. I'm just eyeballing it. If this was the top of my backboard, I want to come down a little bit for my tab, and I'm going to put it right there. Just eyeballing it. Now I can use my rule, my measurement tool, to measure that line and look, and it tells me the angle of that line is 100.7 degrees. 100.7 degrees. It's a positive number, 100.7. Well, now we have to do a little bit of math. That's 100.7. This is 90 straight up and down. So 10.7 degrees is the difference between this line and my rectangle. And I need to rotate it, and I want to rotate this corner backwards. I want to make my anchor point the center, because I've anchored that right there, and I want to put that in the center, and I want to rotate it counterclockwise 10.7 degrees, so I need to do negative 10.7 degrees. And that centers that right up there. And now, since that line is the same all the way down, I can hit Control D, duplicate it, and then bring that down here to where I want it to be, and then say I want it to be right about there. And I'm just basing it on looks and looks alone. And now I can say duplicate that, or group them, Control D, duplicate it, move it over here, and rotate it back a positive 10.7. That puts it back upright. There is my tabs to go in these slots for the back piece. And what is this over here? That's my back piece. So now I can take these, bring them over here, tell it to align to the center. There we go. And then Alt-Shift-H to align them together. Alt-Shift-H will move them together horizontally. I need to duplicate those. Control-D, duplicate them, bring them, put them down. Didn't mean put them down, but I'll bring them all the way over here. Select that again and tell it to go to the center, and then Alt-Shift-H to align those to that side. Now if I weld those, I should get a good clean weld, but I don't. It didn't line up with that. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to select just those tabs, and I'm going to bring it in a 1/2 mil by hitting Control and arrow in. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here, because they're probably not going to work either. Control, arrow in. And now I'm going to hold my shift button and grab that pair, group those, hold my shift button, grab that, and weld it. Now those are not 3 millimeters tall. Fine. Go into Tools, Resize Slots and Selection. And notice here, it's recognizing that as a slot. And that's not a slot. We're going to fix that. But we're going to change our tab height. We want to change from whatever the thickness is to 3 mil. And now it's recognizing all three of those and say OK. So now they're back to 3 mil. Go into Node Editing and hit the letter M. Come over here to this line and hit the letter M for middle. And over here again. And that puts a node right there in the middle of that line. So now when you go into the Resize Slots and Selection tool, tools, there we go, Resize Slots and Selection, it no longer recognizes that as a slot, because that node prevents it from being confused. It only sees, if we tell it 3 mil is our new material, now you see it recognizes the tabs only and not the slots. So now I've got a profile for my side legs, and I've got a profile for my back. Now I just need to make my chairs, the seat slats. So if I do this, and I made this up here as a reminder, I can go up here and grab my rule. That one is 12 mil, and that one is 6 mil. So this needs to be 12 high, and it needs to be the same length as this, which was 285 mil. It's not, and here you want to be careful. If you select that entire thing, it tells you it's 291 wide, but you got 3 mil on these here, so a total of 6 mil. So this is only actually 285. So unlocked aspect ratio 285. Let's grab that one, bring it down here, rotate it, align it to the center, Alt-Shift-H, moves it together. I'm going to duplicate it, Control-D, duplicate that, bring it all the way over here. Hold Shift, select that, Alt-Shift-H to bring it together. And now you can try and weld it together and see if it works. That time it did. Try it again and weld it, and there you go. And now select that and do an array. We want 6 rows with 0 Y spacing, 6 rows, 0 Y spacing, and okay. So there's 6 slats. There's our backboard, or our legs rather, and here is our backboard. I don't need that anymore and get rid of it. And I really don't even need our original tool paths, but just in case, I'm going to take those and put them on a tool path. And you can turn the tool path off. You can see what you got. See, there's your side legs. You don't have an armrest, and you don't have any real support right here with your legs either. So we're going to add some of that. I did not do that originally because I did not want them to have the same thickness or the same offset of this. So if I come in here and I draw me a line, I'm going to come up about 1/3 of the way up of this distance, about 1/3 of the way, because I don't want the armrest wouldn't be up here real high, wouldn't be real low. So I'm going to come up about there, and I'm going to start a line. I'm going to come inside a little bit, and you'll see why in a second. And I'm going to start a line there, and I'm holding my drawing. Yep, but I'm not. I'm drawing on toolpath. Let's change that. I want to select the red layer and a pencil, and I'm going to come just inside here. Come up about there. Start drawing a line. I'm holding my shift key, and I'm going to come out here to about the edge of that leg. I'm holding shift so that's staying up there straight, but I can bring this down here and find where the edge of that's at, and that's about there. So now I can hit left click again to stop drawing, and now I'm going to bring this one down here, and I'm also going to bring it just slightly inside that piece, and I don't want it straight down. I'm going to bring it in here just about what I think is going to look good, and you'll see what's going to happen in a second. But bring it inside and left click again, right click to stop drawing. Now I'm going to take that piece right there, and I'm going to put a radius on it. I'm going to try a 10mm radius, see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to do an offset of that piece, but I don't want to do 6mm. I want to do 3mm this time. And I'm using rounded corners, and this is why I went inside. If you're using square corners and you stopped up here at the top, well, it wouldn't have overlapped this piece. It would have been a problem. But by going inside, you can use square or round as long as you're overlapping and going inside of that leg. Delete the original, say OK, hold shift and select that and weld them together, and now you got an armrest on there. Now let's create some down here, some supports, corner supports. Since I'm going to go up here to my accents, and you could do this with just a regular line if you want to, but I've got some accent pieces, and I'm going to bring this in here. Now that's not thick enough as it is. I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees by holding shift and my less than. That rotates it 45 degrees, but I'm going to shrink it down to size, and I'm going to do an offset of that because I don't like how thin that piece is to begin with. So start out, I'm going to make it a 1mm offset. That looks better. Delete the original, say OK. Now I'm going to, and actually, you know what, that's too big. Let's do an offset of a 1/2 mil. That's better. Delete the original. Now I want to do another offset. This time I'm going to do 3 mil. Yeah, 3 mil. And do not delete the original and say OK. And now let's select those two, group them, Control D, duplicate them, use the mirror key to flip them over, then move that over here, And I'm now going to select both of these and group them. And now what I want to do is to ensure I've got them in the corner of that, I'm going to, or in the center of that leg, because if you take these right here and you tell it to go to the center point, that may or may not be exactly centered up in the legs, and I'm going to make sure it is by coming up here. I've got my rectangle tool, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw out. I'm holding shift, and so that's, and I'm going to come out of that corner there, and that gives me a rectangle or a square that's centered up in the top of those legs. Now I can take and select that pair, hold my shift button, select that, and tell it to go to the center of that, and it didn't move. It's good. But that way I'm sure that I'm centered up exactly where that's at. And I'm going to now take those and ungroup it. I'm going to select the two outermost pieces and put them on a cut path. Group those together and weld those to my legs. Weld. Then I'm going to select that and put it on, it can be on a cut path and cut them out, or you could do it as an engraving, either one. And now you got some supports on those legs. This is where you could add some artwork in here. This is where I put the hearts. You can make it, you could leave it blank and make it very, very clean, or you could add cutouts in there. And down here, if you wanted to do something like this, so we'll come in here, we're going to draw that down. And that's 36 at its widest point, so let's do a circle. Control Shift to draw out from the middle, and tell that circle to be, we'll add, we'll say 37. At locked aspect ratio, 37 mil. No, not enough. Let's do 39. That'll work. 39 mil. Now grab both of those and group it. Now is this one and this one, I'll group those, and then I can take that and tell it to go to the center of those two, and that ensures it's centered up. Then I'm going to take it and I'm going to control arrow it up until no, I'm not going to arrow it up. I want to keep it about there. I got overlap there, but hold control and let's draw it out and make it bigger. And now control down a little bit. And down a little bit. What I'm looking for is to try and keep my engraving out of that area and out of that area. And I can bring it down a little bit right about there. That looks good. I'm overlapped, but I'm not engraving on those other pieces. Now I'm going to ungroup it, and I'm going to select that and weld that together, and change my window to, that is, okay, why is that not filled? Ungroup. Oh, there's a duplicate there. I got a problem with that piece. See how you can see the ants in some places, and some places you can't. There's some duplicates here. Delete. No. Undo. Is it grouped still? No. I got some problems with that. I got to go check that out. But now that I've got that piece in there, say that artwork ain't going to work for me. Well, fine. I'll just delete that, and I can bring in. Let's bring in a bird. We'll bring in the dove. Something like that. But then there you've got, a nice design with some artwork added to it. Now, let's make the backboard. Now the backboard, I'm going to create some slats in it. And if these were 12 millimeter, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to start with 12 wide and unlock my aspect ratio and draw that down a little bit and then put it in the center. And that's, from an eyeball standpoint, that's looking pretty good. I'm actually going to make it a little bit shorter. We'll control down to about there. All right, now that's about the look I'm looking for, but I'm not sure about the 12 millimeter because I need to have an equal spacing between all of these pieces, and I want to have 12 holes, which would mean 13 slats if I'm doing my math right, so it's 25 pieces. So if I need 25 pieces and I want to have them equally spaced, then, and it's only going to be the distance of this piece here, which is 285 millimeters, and what I need to do is 285 mil, I'm going to select this piece, and I'm going to come up here to my width and say 285 millimeters divided by 25, and that's 11.4, so it's not quite 12, and that's okay. It's close. You won't see 6/10 of a millimeter. But I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to put it right here to that corner. And I'm going to now center it. And I'm going to duplicate that. Control D, duplicate it. And I'm going to move it over here and then hold my shift button, select that one. Alt Shift H to bring it together. Now take that one and delete it. And now I will take that one and do an array. And I'm going to do 12 columns. And I did that too fast. Array, 12 columns. And it's doing the X spacing of 11.6, which is the width. No, it's not. 11.4 was the width, wasn't it? Yep, so we're going to do a X spacing of 11.4. There we go. So 11.4, 12 columns, and that gives them an equal spacing between each other and from the edge of the material. And say OK. Group the results, say OK. And now with that group, hold my shift button, select that, and make sure it's centered up by hitting my bullseye, and that's centered up. Now that is a group, and that is an individual piece, and you can simply group them. And now that's going to cut out the backboard, or the same results. You'll get the same exact thing if you got ungroup. There we go. That's a group. That's individual. So if you took that individual piece, hold shift and select your group and subtract it, essentially it does the same thing. It welds those in there. So it's now one piece. You can move it around, no big deal. There's your backboard. There's your 6 slats for your seat. You've oriented and rotated those around so you'll have a nice curvature for your seat. Those are positioned correctly. You've seen how I added the artwork in there. Now let's customize this up here a little bit. So now that I've actually subtracted those or welded them, I can't see my nodes unless I go back to individual pieces again. So now I can select that outer piece and get my nodes, hit the letter M for middle, come over it and hit the letter S for smooth, click on it to highlight it, and I'm going to move up 10 mil or 5 mil by using my arrow key, 5, 10, and now like that. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on that and that, and I'm going to zoom in where I can see it, and I'm going to hold my control button and arrow up until I get where they're really close to overlapping and say OK. And now I've got an arc on the top of the backboard. That looks good. And you could do it just like that, or you could add artwork like I did here. And to do that, say if we're going to do, I I was going to do a duck hunting version of this, but I forgot about it. So here we're going to bring in my duck. Now it's too big, so we're going to bring him down to size. Let's bring him down to about 40 mil. I didn't have the aspect ratio locked. All right, and now let's bring him down to about there, and let's do, I'm gonna put him right on top of it. And now I'm going to do an offset of 1 mil. Do not delete the original, say OK. Put that on a cut path. Select all of it, group it, Control D, duplicate it, move it over here, mirror it. Hold my shift, select that one, group those, hold my shift, select that, center it. And then if you wanted to put something in here between them, we'll come in here, come right there to the center, hold my shift and control and draw out a circle. And now let's bring that up. Actually, I'm gonna bring it on up. I'm gonna align it to the center of those ducks. The horizontal center. There we go. Alright, so that's overlapping there, but I don't like how much it overlaps the duck's beak, so I'm gonna shrink it down some. And I'm gonna forget about the center, I'm gonna bring it down some, shrink it down a little more. And that'll work. And I'm going to do a inward offset, inward of 2. Yeah, 2 mil. No, we'll do 1.5. 1.5. Okay. Offset. Okay. Offset. Okay. Offset. Okay. Rinse and repeat. Offset. Okay. Offset. Okay. And I know there's a keyboard shortcut to repeat, and I can't remember what it is right now. And can I get another one in there? Nope. What about if I did 1? Yeah. And say OK. Now I'm going to select all of these guys, hold my control button, and select the outer one to deselect it, and put all the rest of them on the black layer. Now hold my select the outer one, hold my shift, select the duck, and weld those together. They changed layers on me. Let's put it back on the cut layer. There we go. Well, that's because I had them welded together. Dummy. I need to select that, ungroup them. Select just, nope, they're still grouped. So hit ungroup. There we go. Got to do it over here too. Ungroup, ungroup. There we go. So now select the red, and the red. Nope, can't do them all at the same time. I could group them and do it, but we'll just grab those two, weld them. Grab those two, weld them. And then grab our park bench and weld them. So now I got a target that would go on there with the ducks on there, and that's how you would customize that. So now that you've watched this, you know how to design a workbench from, not a workbench, a park bench. Start to finish, you can create your own unique designs. You don't need to go over to hobowithwood.com to buy the memorial bench. You can create your own, or if you want to save some time and trouble, just go over there and download it, and you can customize that one without having to recreate it from scratch. I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood. I appreciate you hanging around for this long video. If you thought about, or if you think you like my designs and you go over to hobowithwood.com, you say, man, these are really cool things, consider going over to patreon.com/hobowithwood and becoming a patron on Patreon. A gold patron gets all of my designs for free. So I ask that you don't sign up and download $600 worth of goods. And I have people like John that did that. But because I get new designs every month, and you don't want to make me mad and me kick you out of there. You want to be able to get them continually, get them for free, and download, $40 worth of $40 worth of stuff a month. Double your money back on the projects, and get designs that were designed in Lightburn. They work flawlessly in Lightburn, and I do not put anything on my website that I have not already tested. Like I said, I built this one and didn't like it because of how the gaps there, how much spacing I had between the slats, and build a second one with more slats in between them to fill that up and better. So I test everything I design before I put a final design on my website for sale. They work in Lightburn and they work flawlessly. If you ever buy a design from me and you find that there's a problem with it, I'll refund you the purchase price of that file plus the cost of it again. I'll refund your purchase 200% if you find a flaw that doesn't work like it's designed to in Lightburn. If you find that you're having a problem with it, you can always contact me and I can help you understand why it does what it does when it does what it does. But I am not perfect. I am human and I do make mistakes, and I have refunded people's purchases when they're one of the first ones to download it and find a problem. I refund it and their money back again so they can download another file for free. So once again, thank you for hanging out and watching these videos. I do try to show you start to finish how to do these, including the errors. I do not edit my videos, but I also do not omit things that prevent you from replicating the same file yourself, and a lot of creators do that. Beware. Once again, thank you. I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood, and I'm out.